Today we will be starting from Surah 43, verse 82. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. Be he glorified. He is the Lord of the heavens and the earth, the Lord with the great dominion far above their claims. Let them blunder and play until they meet their day that is awaiting them. He is the only one who is a deity in the heaven and a deity on earth. He is the most wise, the omniscient. Most exalted is the one who possesses all sovereignty of the heavens and the earth and everything between them. With him is the knowledge about the hour and of the world, and to him you will be returned. None of those whom they idolize beside him possess any power to intercede, unless their intercession coincides with the truth, and they fully know. If you ask them who created them, they would say God. Why then did they deviate? It will be proclaimed, O my Lord, these people do not believe. You shall disregard them and say peace. They will surely find out. So we read a lot in these verses about all the different attributes of God and how God is the only one who's worthy of being worshipped in the heavens and the earth. So God says that He is the Lord of the heavens and the earth, the Lord of the great dominion. So there is no other entity that can be worshipped beside God, because He's the only one worthy of worship. All these other creatures are so insignificant. They cannot control anything, but God is the one who controls everything, and all praise. That's why all praise belongs to Him, because He's the creator of everything that we think is amazing, even or worthy of being praised. So God says He's far above their claim. So the claims that people make about God and the idols and how God needs partners and all the blasphemous stuff that they say about God. God is far above all of that. And God says, let them blunder and play. So people are blundering and playing is what they're doing in this world. They're blundering is an extreme act of stupidity. And people are putting their entire lives at stake. Just wasting this chance that is something that is so important, that their eternal salvation depends on all of this. And so they'll only realize when it's too late, like what it really was worth. So but they're just wasting this time doing all kinds of stupid things. We see people do all kinds of stupid things in this world and waste their life, and doing drugs, or doing all kinds of vice, and forgetting about God. And people are. We know how bad the world is, right? I don't have to explain. And so, really, God is the only one who is a deity in the heavens and the earth. He's the only one who possesses all sovereignty. He's above any government. He is independent, and He rules the 7 universes. And God says that with Him is the knowledge about the hour end of the world, and to Him you will be returned. So God knows exactly, when the world will come to an end. We know the year will end in 2280 AD, but we don't know exactly when in 2280 AD, will end. But God knows the exact time it will end, and we will ultimately return to God. And then God says, these people that they idolize beside God, they have no power to intercede on their behalf. Jesus or Muhammad or any of these people that creatures believe that will save them, if they worship them, if they idolize them. These are just promises of Satan that are used to dupe people into committing idol worship. And people just do it without thinking, not realizing what they're doing. But really, Satan has duped millions of people by that. But God says none of them possess any authority to intercede. So nobody can intercede on behalf of anybody as far as God is concerned. Intercession is useless. Everybody has a stamp on their forehead heaven and hell based on what they deserve, and we get assigned those ranks based on what we deserve. And if someone deserves to go to hell, no Jesus or Muhammad or anybody else, nobody can save them. If someone deserves to go to hell, they will go to hell. And this is God's law. And if anybody believes anything otherwise, they're committing idol worship, and they will be eventually destined for hell if they die believing that way. There's no doubt about that. God says. And God says the intercession will only be useful if it coincides with the truth. So which means that if somebody's really righteous and somebody really deserves to go to paradise, only then their intercession will be useful, right? So this is a very important verse, 43:86, that clearly kind of sums up what intercession is like with God. Only if it coincides, It's like you work for a company and you have a boss and you ask the boss to hire someone. The boss will only hire him if the person is competent and deserves the job, right? So you telling the boss to hire him or not is not going to make a difference, right? It's kind of a similar idea. If somebody already deserves to go to heaven, you telling God, please admit this person in heaven is not going to make a difference as far as the person is concerned. As far as you are concerned, it is an act of worship that you're, still thinking about God and asking God for something, imploring God for something for someone. But as far as the person is concerned, it's not going to make any difference for them. God says, none of whom they idolize beside him possess any power to intercede unless their intercession coincides with the truth and they fully know. So this is a very clear verse from the Quran, right? In simple Arabic, but yet, millions of people are, sending praises to Muhammad every day, thinking that he'll intercede on their behalf and that he possesses some power to intercede. And like I remember on the TV, every time there was a call to prayer, at the end of the prayer, they were doing these salutations to Muhammad and praying to him to intercede for them. If you ask them who created them, they would say God. Why then they deviate? It will be proclaimed, "O my Lord, these people do not believe. You should disregard them and say peace, they will surely find out." So basically, these people do believe in God, obviously, but, they commit idol worship. And so God says, let them disbelieve, offer them peace, they will find out, because no matter what you tell these people, they're still going to do what they're going to do, so just let them be, and they will find out, your responsibility is just to warn them, if at all. You see people commit idol worship in front of you. You're not okay with it. You let them know. You tell them what the right way is. And if they still choose to go the wrong way, then, it's their destiny, right? And we can't do anything. And God says they will surely find out. So God willing, I will start reading Surah 44, the smoke of the Khan. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. HM and this enlightening scripture. We have sent it down in a blessed night, for we are to warn. In it, the scripture, every matter of wisdom is clarified. It is a predetermined command from us that we send messengers. This is a mercy from your Lord. He is the hearer, the omniscient, Lord of the heavens and the earth and everything between them. If only you could be certain. There is no other God beside him. He controls life and death, your Lord and the Lord of your ancestors. Indeed, they are doubtful, heedless. The smoke, a major prophecy. Therefore watch for the day when the sky brings a profound smoke. And the footnote says, only two signs are yet to be fulfilled. This smoke and Gog and Magog, Appendix 25. Therefore watch for the day when the sky brings a profound smoke. It will envelop the people. This is a painful retribution. Our Lord, relieve this retribution for us. We are believers. God's messenger of the covenant. Now that it is too late, they remember. An enlightening messenger had come to them. And the footnote says the sum of the surah and the verse numbers 44 plus 13 is 57, 19 times 3, and this Quranic code was proclaimed by God's messenger of the covenant, appendices 1, 2, and 26. So it says, now that it's too late, they remember an enlightening messenger had come to them. But they turned away from him, saying, well educated but crazy. We will relieve the retribution for a while, you will soon revert. The day we strike the big stroke, we will avenge. We have tested before them the people of Pharaoh. An honorable messenger went to them, proclaiming, Listen to me, servants of God, I am an honest messenger to you, and do not transgress against God. I bring to you powerful proofs. I seek refuge in my Lord and your Lord if you oppose me. If you do not wish to believe, then simply leave me alone. Okay, so I will stop here. So the Surah of Dukhan or smoke starts with HM, and we know about the HM initials. The frequency of these initials add up to be a multiple of 19 in all of HM initial surahs. They have an interlocking relationship, and you can read more about it in Appendix 1. And God says this enlightening scripture. God says He has sent it down in a blessed night. So obviously, on the onset, you're given the mathematical proof about everything you're reading here, and we're being told about the smoke that God says that will envelop the people. Now, and this is why the title of the chapter is The Smoke. And this is one of the prophecies, as the footnote says, that will come to pass before the end of the world. And then only one other prophecy after that will come to pass, which is Gog and Magog. So that is in Appendix 25. Now, I know that there was some information shared last time by one of our sisters about the end of the world. But I think it was saying one of them would be United States. But that's not the most current information. The message was revealed. The message was revealed in stages to the Messenger of the Covenant, and based on that, we know that we are told that these America will be the heart of Islam. So U.S. will not be one of them, right? America will be the heart of Islam, and so these two, nations will basically attack the believers. The rest of the world will be following submission, and they will attack. So just wanted to clear that up. And then also, God is saying that we have sent it down a blessed night for we are to warn, and every matter of wisdom is clarified. So everything that we need to know for our salvation, this God has clarified it in the Quran. This is a scripture that is very straightforward with laws and things that and commandments, all the commandments that we need to follow, and so it's clarified in the Quran. Whatever you need to do is clarified, and so if you find things that are not in the Quran, you're not supposed to follow them, and you're supposed to follow only what is here in this book and nothing else. And that's why God says every matter of wisdom is clarified here. Everything you need to know for your salvation, is in this book. And if it's not in this book, rest assured that it's not from God. We're also told that, so God says that, watch for the day when the sky brings a profound smoke. So the Messenger of the Covenant explains what this would be like, and based on the information that we have received, the Messenger of the Covenant has clearly identified the way this will happen, okay? So it's not going to happen from some kind of a war or some kind of a natural disaster or catastrophe or anything like that. He said that, the earth will be hit by an asteroid, and that will, spread a lot of debris, all around the atmosphere. It's going to annihilate, a lot of people, and then the rest of the world will be covered in smoke for days. And, then people will implore God to relieve this retribution, and then it will go away, right? But it's a sign before the end of the world. It's going to be a significant event. And God says that this will happen. And so God says, now that it's too late, they remember an enlightening messenger had come to them. So God sent us a messenger, the messenger of the covenant, Dr. Rashad Khalifa, and God calls him a lightning messenger. Uh, but people just disregard him, calling him, saying that he's well educated, giving him credit for his education, yet calling him crazy. So well educated. The messenger of the covenant was very well educated, mashallah. But he was not crazy. He was a messenger from God, and he was sent with the information that God chose to give to the people for our own benefit. And for people to say things like that about every messenger, it's just sad for the humans, and it always backfires on them for sure. If they only realize, when they realize, it'll be too late. So, but God says we will relieve this retribution for a while. Then the day we strike the big stroke, we will avenge. So after some time, the retribution will be taken away. You but then God says on the day of judgment, He will avenge for everything the people have done. Right, and these are strong words. So people should not take this message lightly. People who are downplaying the message and the truth in this world and just passing it by like that. Well, it's just a crazy person, and you just you know go about their day. Um, but these people realize that it wasn't something that simple. They just shrug it away and they just go about their lives as if nothing happened. But it's never the same. Once you come across the message, your life will never be the same. Either you'll go up in your ranks and live a happy life, or you're just gonna get extremely miserable eventually. You know. So may God help us. And God gives us the example of Pharaoh's people. God says, previously before that, the people of Pharaoh were tested in a similar manner. He was from Egypt, right? The Rashad Khalifa was from Egypt, and Moses was also from Egypt, and this is one of the similarities. And so God says, before that, He tested the people of Pharaoh. They were also Egyptians, right? And they lived during the time of Moses. And the messenger said to them that, listen to me, servants of God. I am an honest messenger to you, and do not transgress against God. I bring to you profound, powerful proofs. I seek refuge in my Lord and your Lord if you oppose me. If you do not believe, if you do not wish to believe, then simply leave me alone. So we see here in Moses' example, that he was fighting with extremely powerful people as far as the world is concerned. Pharaoh was a very powerful person on earth, or he thought he was. But obviously, God was more powerful, and he didn't realize that he was fighting God by opposing Moses in this manner until it was too late. And Moses said, if you don't wish to believe, just simply leave me alone. Like, obviously, these people would not leave him alone, and they kept pursuing him until they died. And we know exactly, how God allowed them to be annihilated, and God, made Moses victorious, and God, made their example an everlasting lesson for people, to believe. Obviously, all of this now is mathematically confirmed. Like this chapter starts with HM, that's why God says, all of this is mathematically coded. You cannot keep track of all of these numbers, without even knowing about the mathematical miracle. 1400 years ago, we didn't have access to computers even. And so this awesome mathematical miracle assures us that everything we're reading in this book, including this miracle, is from God. So that's why the mathematical miracle is one of the great miracles, the ultimate miracle. And so it comes with a huge responsibility, for people. And so people who just ditch it, for no reason, are making a very, very serious mistake that they're going to regret for eternity, literally. Um, may God help us, to be on the right side and to be in the forefront and not to be, on the left side of these people that are going to end up eventually going to hell. I mean, obviously, God says Pharaoh's people, are in the grave right now, having nightmares since the time that they left this world until hell is created, and then they eventually go in there, and so they're in continuous misery now and forever. And I mean, God has given their example that God said, "Travel with my servants during the night; you will be pursued. Cross the sea quickly; their troops will be drowned." Thus they left behind many gardens and springs, crops and a luxurious life, blessings that they enjoyed. All these we caused to be inherited by other people. Neither the heaven nor the earth wept over them, and they were not respited. Meanwhile, we saved the children of Israel from the humiliating persecution. From Pharaoh, he was a tyrant. We have chosen them from among all the people knowingly. We show them so many proofs which constituted a great test. Expect the same consequences. The present generation say, "We only die the first death. We will never be resurrected. Bring back our forefathers if you're truthful." Are they better than the people of Toba and others before them? We annihilated them for their crimes. We did not create the heavens and the earth and everything between them just to play. We created them for a specific purpose, but most of them do not know. The day of decision awaits them all. That is the day when no friend can help his friend in any way. No one can be helped. Only those who attain mercy from God. He's the Almighty, most merciful. So God talks about how Moses, when he was pursued, was saved by God, right? And Pharaoh and his people were drowned. And we understand that, this is the same system that God has put in place for all the believers. It's not just specific to Moses and his people, but if believers are faced with a similar kind of situation, I mean, God will make way for them in some way that they will be saved in the same manner, and nothing will happen to them, right? Um, and the messenger, I like how the example of the messenger of the covenant gives, it's like he said, expect a helicopter or something will come and rescue you. And it's kind of a similar example. They didn't have helicopters back then, but God allowed them to be rescued by parting the sea. And a lot of people try to come up with scientific explanations on why the sea parted. I mean, it's great that at least they believe that it did part, but they were trying to look for scientific explanations on why, and they're trying to come up with all these scientific reasonings, this weather phenomena and this and that, but they fail to explain why it just happened at the time when just Moses happened to be there by the water, being chased and having no way back, and so even if God, allowed it to happen by whatever weather phenomenon, whatever, it doesn't change anything, right? The fact that God made it happen and people had no choice but to believe it, is amazing in itself. God allowed the whole history to be preserved without reason so nobody can doubt it, Subhanallah. And so God says these people left behind a lot of crops and luxurious mansions. I mean, a huge legacy, things that you still see. I mean, they're, quite extraordinary. And, people come from all over the world to admire the relics and the history and everything. So, really, it was something to be, witnessed, especially at the time. And imagine being one of those people. Obviously, he had a huge ego. But he was also a tyrant, and God says that He saved the children of Israel from the humiliating persecution. I mean, these people were persecuted And Pharaoh was also, these people were also racists and really extremely bad people, and they were enslaved by his people, and obviously they were treated very badly. And God, in the end, God made them the winners. So it's the same for believers. If you follow God's message, if you follow the truth, you will not be oppressed on earth. I mean, we see all these so-called Islamic countries, crying every day uh, that they're oppressed and this and that, but they don't see any victory. Nothing comes to them because these are wicked people. And if they turn righteous, God would help them. Even if they have money, they're still wicked people, and they still don't get any real victory or any real respect. Also, money in itself does not make anybody victorious. But a lot of these Middle Eastern countries, especially in the Arabian Peninsula, are very rich right now. But that's just because God wants them to go to the high floor before being thrown out the building. So this is just the beginning of their end, basically. These people will reach a lot of wealth, as we know. I mean, they're getting so much money right now that they don't know how to do with it. It's just out of control, and we know how out of control it is. They have so much money, they don't know what to do with it. They're shoving gold in their cars and everything. Just don't know what to do with the money, right? Of course, they're not going to give it to the poor. They just want to hoard it for themselves, but they don't know what to do with it. They have so much, right? And so this is a sign from God that this is it's close. The smoke is close, and so these people will get annihilated. These people have been, um, you know, taken out of God's grace because none of them wants to follow the truth. None of them wants to follow the message. And that's why we see nobody from the Arab world, Arabian Peninsula. I'm not talking about Africa and other countries, but that speak Arabic. But countries within the Arabian Peninsula, none of them. You don't come across anybody who's a submitter. And this is strange if you think about it. Like Arabic is their mother tongue, and so they should be the first people to understand the Quran and see the truth, but they can't, and we know why. God says expect the same consequences, right? And so these people are going to expect the same consequences. The message came to them, they rejected. People, Saudi Arabia, all these countries, that are in the Arabian Peninsula. They did work very hard to try to wipe out the message, to try to kill the messenger of the covenant, and spent a lot of money to try to subvert the message. And there are other people, not just the Arabs, that are trying to do that now, right? A lot of people in a lot of different countries, still, at large, trying to oppose God and His messenger. And so God says exactly same thing is going to happen to them, nothing different. So people have to make the intelligent choice, but they don't. But God says on the day of judgment, nothing is going to help them. And God says, He has created this earth for a very specific reason. I mean, we know that we failed to make a firm stand with God, and so we're just created here to see if we're going to worship God alone and devote ourselves completely to Him, or we're going to be stupid and end up in some kind of idol worship, which is so sad for people that end up, despite all the knowledge that God has, put at our disposal in this world, that they will eventually go to hell. So God says we did not create it for just play. We created it for a specific purpose. But the present generations, they don't believe in resurrection. They believe in all kinds of stupidity, but they cannot believe in resurrection. You know, and they think that this is the only life they're supposed to live, and they can live as good as they like. And they don't believe in the hereafter. And we see that in their lives when the kind of things they do. They don't believe in God. I mean, they say it with their lips all they want, that they believe in God and they're Muslims or they're Christians and this and that. But then at the end of the day, what they do, in their privacy, or when they can get away with something, tells a lot about what they really believe. And so we know that these people are hypocrites, and they don't actually believe in God. And when they can get away with it, they'll do anything, which shows that they don't really believe in the hereafter. And if they did, anybody who does believe in the hereafter, God will guide them, you know. And this is why we see most people are just following idol worship. It's a trick of Satan, but God it's God's system that people who are devoted absolutely to God alone, Satan is not going to be able to dupe them into idol worship. But everybody else is going to be doomed. Everybody else is going to follow some kind of idols. Everyone else is going to go to hell, unfortunately. So, this is the reality of this world that we live in. And this is why, all around us we see wicked people, we see destruction, we see chaos, because we're living in Satan's dominion, and all these people are worshiping Satan, belong in his kingdom, and people are miserable and unhappy, and there's chaos all around us. There's disasters, floods, fires, all these things, people going through all kinds of natural disasters, and wars and all this stuff. But the believers, people who worship God alone, they belong in God's kingdom, and God saves them. So God says, but the disbelievers, they will always be in chaos, and their life from beginning to end will be just, bad. God says the disbelievers, God says, surely the tree of bitterness will provide the food for the sinful. Like lye, it will boil in the stomachs. Like the boiling of hellish drinks, take them and throw him into the center of hell. Then pour upon his head the retribution of the inferno. Taste this, you are so powerful, so honorable. This is what you used to doubt. The righteous will be in a secure position, enjoying gardens and springs, wearing velvet and satin, close to each other. We grant them wonderful spouses. So this is a striking contrast between the believers and the disbelievers. And God says that the disbelievers will eat from the tree of bitterness. We cannot imagine what that would be like. In this world, if your food tastes a little bit odd, or it's gone off a little bit, or if it's a little acidic or whatever, it's very difficult for people to eat. People will not eat it. But imagine on the day of judgment when people will be forced to eat and drink these things, when they know it's just gonna cause more damage in their insides. It's just gonna burn them. It's like drinking acid, lye that will boil in the stomachs. It melt their skins from the inside. I just feel bad talking about it. But imagine people actually going to that, And so this is a horrible, horrible thing. Like, no one ever wants to be in that position if they really believe, But this is what these people get. Then after that, on their heads, they get worse retribution. Stuff gets poured on their heads when their insides are all in chaos, and then their outsides, so they're inside out, they're just in complete misery. And God says, this is what you used to doubt, So we should not have any doubt about the hereafter. We should be certain that this will happen. And these are the people that doubted it. Not that they didn't believe it. They kind of believed it, but they had doubts, And so they are not going to make it. We know that. If you're certain about the hereafter, only those people have a chance to make it, right? So God says these are the righteous, and the righteous people, God says, they will be in a completely different world. They will be in a secure position, enjoying gardens and springs and wonderful spouses and drinks, I mean, God says that you know they will have everything, anything they want, hearts, anything the hearts desire, the eyes wish for. They'll have perfect peace. You know, they will never be evicted from paradise. They will not hear any nonsense. It will just be blissful, uh, for eternity. And so, this is what we want for ourselves. We don't want to live a life that we regret later. Every moment that we have on this earth is a precious chance for us to make the right choices so that we don't regret this life. And God has been extremely merciful and kind to us to give us the message, to give us the details, to send us messengers, to give us the guidance, to give us the mathematical miracle, to guide us so we can save ourselves. So, may God allow us to take advantage of that, obviously, because if we don't take it seriously, we will end up worse than anybody else. Uh, um, and so, may God save all of us. God willing, I'll end here, and if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free.
MashaAllah.
We don't have anybody who has questions. So, Brother Salami, you have any questions or comments?
Uh, I can ask this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
working on it in my life, actually, trying to get the correct guidance from God and asking for it like a pray. But I can ask it here too.
Mm-hmm.
How how should I understand if something bad happened to me, if it's a hardship from God or if it's a consequence of my bad deed, like uh,
Mm-hmm.
like yeah.
Right. I mean, the thing is, hardships, like, uh, nothing bad comes from God, right? So even tests that are designed to see if you worship God in all circumstances, I mean, the bad things are executed by Satan, tests are inflicted by Satan. So God doesn't inflict any pain, any misery upon anyone, right? So even if you're going to admission tests like Job, right? His example is in the Quran as one of the worst things that was happening. He says Satan has inflicted him, right? So it's not God. So nothing comes from bad comes from God, period. Right? Even the hardships that you're talking about, they don't come from God. You know, they're either tests coming from in accordance with God's will, but really being executed by Satan. You know, and then you have actual consequences of things that are happening now. For one, we know that the admission tests that will happen to test people, God says one thing we know for sure, that they will not leave any permanent damage, right? So you will not like lose a hand or a finger or a leg or anything like that, as part of your admission test. But I mean, that's really uh, what I can say as far as you being 100% sure on it. But other than that, I think you really have to see yourself and your life. The thing is, once you become a submitter and you say you believe, you will start going through admission tests, right? But after you pass your tests, there's no reason for you to be tested. And so, after that, if things are happening, right? it's a clear sign that you're probably doing something wrong, right? And God wants you to be purified, and you need to just reflect and see where you might have made mistakes, right? So it's a chance for you to reflect. But there's no clear way of you finding out like which one it was unless you just look at your own life. But usually what happens is, when these things happen, you know, and you try to reflect, God will let you know. If you're doing something wrong, inshallah, I mean, you're guided, then you will know, oh, I did this thing wrong, I did that thing wrong. So you can, somewhat tell, if you've made a mistake somewhere or not, right?
Right, inshallah, yeah. Thanks so much
Mm-hmm.
for
You're
answering.
welcome.
Um, what about the health issues? For example, I sneeze every morning, and I used to think that it's an allergic, but now I'm thinking that every disease I'm receiving is in health, like a health problem. There should be another reason at the background, like probably I'm doing something wrong. That's why I'm receiving this, because according to understanding, according to readings, God never burdens a soul beyond its means. And as you said, everything bad happened because of the bad things that I did.
Mm-hmm.
So how should I sh the health issue also
Mm-hmm.
in the same
Right.
position, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. So I mean, like one thing I mentioned is, as part of your first, when you say you believe, you can expect admission tests. You know, he says usually the messenger of the covenant explains that it's usually like first 5 years or so. Normally, um, for a believer. So within that time, you can expect a lot of things to happen, not just allergies, right? I mean, you will go through a series of tests. I mean, think about
That's
Job's
true.
test as an extreme example, right? He's gone through stuff also, right? But those were to test him, whether he's going to worship God under all circumstances or not, right? But once you pass those tests and you still have issues, then you need to also reflect on those too, right? But the thing is, uh, during the admission test, I mean, you have to make sure that you're doing everything right. Even if your admission test, if you're making mistakes, more bad things will happen, right? You're gonna get consequences. Like for example, if you, I'm just giving an example, right? Let's say if you drank or something like that, you can expect serious consequences even during your admission test, right? Because like in your admission test, you can only be put to certain damage, right? As allowed by God, right? But if you're going to mess up and not even do the basic things that you're supposed to do and you do commit sins and stuff, then obviously bad things will happen as a result of those too. But just because you're in your admission test doesn't mean you're immune to have consequences. You can still have consequences, right? So you still always need to be in the habit of looking at yourself, trying to fix things in your life, right? A lot of times, what happens is, you might be doing everything okay, in the sense that you're not doing any sins and things like that, and you're doing your prayers and giving your zakat and everything. But it could be other things. Like for example, all day you could be thinking about some other things, right? Like God says that God has to be your God most of the day, right? So it's like 51% of your time that you're awake, God has to be on your mind in some form or fashion, right? And if you're thinking about work, if you're thinking about yourself, your perception, people's perception of you in public or things like that, or your spouse or your children or your family or your boss, you know, then you're idolizing those things, right, in life. So those types of things also you have to be very careful, right? That's the main purpose of our creation is to worship God alone under all circumstances. So at least, uh, you know, 51% of your day has to be spent thinking about God in some way, to be counted as worship, right? So it's a big thing, and it's not something that you're gonna get in like maybe overnight, so you have to work on it also, dedicate more time maybe if you have trouble doing that to doing commemoration or zikr or something like that. But just keeping God in the back of your mind all the time, as much as possible, is one thing that I think I always find that, difficult personally, to keep track of, right? Because it's the way the test is designed, and there's so many distractions around you, so many things happening, in life, and so it's easy for people to get distracted by things. So, but someone who worships God will make sure that they're not doing that.
Right, that's true. This is the admission. Yeah, I feel I'm in the admission test. Like,
Definitely, yeah.
inshallah, inshallah,
Inshallah.
I'll be the winner. I'm
Inshallah.
working on it, and I quit the smoke. I used to smoke, and just tobacco stuff, and I quit
Mashallah.
it. And
That's good.
then, yeah, I told myself I tried something when I during this process. Like, for example, I smoked just one, in
Mm-hmm.
the weekend. And you know what happened? My my car tire just get flat. So I was like,
Uh,
okay, now
yeah, I mean, that's good.
this
You're
is
lucky
the
that you just had a flat tire.
right. It would be worse than
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm praying.
Mm-hmm.
I wanna be in this kingdom, not
Yeah,
the
yeah, you mean
not the.
smoking tobacco?
Yeah, I used to smoke tobacco.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, that's just a poor choice of health, and plus you're wasting money, on these things. It's being unappreciative of your health, unappreciative of the money you have, you know. People spend a lot of money when it all adds up, eventually. And your health, obviously, it's important,
Mm. It,
Yeah.
but I also like I didn't think the health wise about smoke. I thought different way. Because for example, I like sugar, right? I
Mm-hmm.
love eating sugar.
Mm-hmm.
But they say it's unhealthy, right? But I tell them, well, I didn't see any wrong thing about sugar. So
Uh-huh.
I should eat sugar if I like it. But
Mm-hmm. Well, in
the
moderation, yeah. God says, we eat and drink moderately. So if you eat sugar, I mean, that's fine, but it's in moderation, right? But people who don't eat in moderation, God says He does not love the gluttons.
right, I should be moderately eat the sugar too, right?
Yeah, everything,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. Everything, like the
Mm-hmm.
everything. Yeah, I mean, just in the morning, you know. Um, but the smoke situation was a little bit. Me and my roommate and me decided to quit
Mm-hmm.
because we 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 went this path. So the longest surah in the Quran is Baqarah, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Hayfer. And I remember the Rashid Khalifa in his videos. He he made this statement. Have you ever thought why the this surah's name is Baqarah?
Mm-hmm.
So because it's the story that it's pointing that you know the story better than me, but the thing is like I should not ask much detail about what is wrong. Like if there's a there's a statement that don't do this, I should not ask which one.
Mm-hmm.
That was the path. I don't know what you think about this. Like quitting smoke was kind of a like trying to be trying to avoid the intoxication situation by thinking the cow story in the Quran, the heifer story in the Quran.
Just you mean smoking tobacco as an intoxication?
Yeah, I thought that way. What you
Mm-hmm.
think?
No, I mean, it doesn't really fall under the definition of tobacco. It doesn't really fall under the definition of intoxicants. Like you see, those are things that affect your mind, that alter your brain chemistry and stuff, right? So
Hmm.
tobacco is addictive, and it's harmful for you, but it doesn't affect your judgment and all this stuff, right? So it's not really in the same category. But in other things, if you think
Mm,
about it, it's bad. Like in terms of money, in terms of your health in general. You know, it's
right.
harmful for you, right? It's very addictive. It's highly addictive. So it's mashallah, you're doing great that you're quitting it because it's very hard to get rid of. It's more addictive, they say, than cocaine and stuff. Other serious things.
Yeah,
So the addiction part is there. But it's not
right.
exactly intoxicants. Like if you see the appendix that talks about intoxicants, you don't see tobacco in there or cigarettes. Obviously cigarettes were there at the time. Very
Yeah,
popular thing, right? But he didn't mention cigarettes because
yeah.
cigarettes you
Selam,
can smoke
brother.
all day. It just kills your lungs and everything, right? But it doesn't affect your mind. But the
Right.
things that are intoxicants are things that weaken your brain. You know, like you smoke marijuana or something or some other drug.
No, yeah,
If
I
you
don't,
just
I
smoke one
don't
or twice, I mean, you can see the effects, right? But
exactly.
cigarettes clearly not in that. Tobacco is clearly not in that category. Doesn't
I'm,
mean it's
I,
okay, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I totally quit the that list in the appendix, and
That's
yeah,
good,
but
mashallah.
yeah, I'm
That's
trying,
very good.
inshallah.
I'm very happy for you,
Yeah,
brother.
yeah. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I mean, those
And
things have
okay,
very serious consequences. I mean,
right.
especially
Okay,
as a submitter, if you're doing them, you're never gonna make any progress, in life. So
it's true.
thank God, mashallah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And just one thing, last thing.
Hmm.
Recently, about the zakat obligatory charity, how to. So I made a list. Exactly, I put the Rashad Khalifa's statement in the appendix, the whole sentence in a paper, and I made a list of my, like, like first relatives, first parents,
Hmm.
then relatives, then I put them as a name in the list.
Uh
Like
huh.
now, but the thing is, should I tell them I am sending a zakat to them or not? Like,
You don't have to say that. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
This is it was really like
Hmm.
I couldn't find the answer, like,
Yeah.
but I was waiting. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. No. No worries. Yeah. A lot of times, people don't even like it if you tell them that it's your zakat. But if you
Mhm.
just give them money, everybody likes money.
That's kind of true. Unfortunately, yeah. Okay, mashallah. Thank you. Shalom, brother.
You're
Have a
welcome, brother.
nice one.
So I guess if there is no other comments or questions, God willing, we can conclude our study. So thank you all for joining us. God willing, our next study will be English study will be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.